This is Pastors Live, a Rev FM production podcast. Join Pastors Dave, Ty, and Shane for a fresh, fun, and often unpredictable take on faith, the Bible, and the world around us.
My popcorn's finished.
Popcorn's done. Gary, you turned the alarm back on. What happened there? Hey, everybody. Welcome back. It's Pastors Live. It is It's Thursday. It's a new year. New year, new you. But no, it's January 8th. And we're really excited to be here in the studio. Pastor Shane is here.
Hello.
Pastor Dave is here with a new tan, so to speak. God
bless you guys.
And I'm Ty. We also have Gary Austin, the voice of the Valley, the man, the myth, the legend.
Hey,
and we're thankful for Gary and all that he does in editing and producing the podcast. But we have a special guest here today as well. And Dave, would you be so kind as to introduce Dave here and let everybody know what's going on there?
The other Pastor Dave.
It's
my brother Dave, my other brother Dave.
This is Pastor Dave squared.
Exactly. PD squared.
PD squared. Okay.
So this is, to my right, we have Pastor Dave McGarrah. Dave, the three of us traveled to Poland and Israel just about 2 months ago.
Yep.
With CUFI, Christians United for Israel. And you're the Idaho guy.
Yes, I'm the responsible guy to try to influence and carry the message of CUFI to churches and anybody who will listen. Yeah.
Now you cover the whole state of Idaho, or
yeah.
Wow, it's a lot of ground.
It is, and you guys are fully aware the atmosphere we're living in right now with such anti-Semitism, and it's creeping into the church, so it makes it really difficult. You would think that churches would be interested, connected, have a heart for Israel. It's not that way. It's a slugfest out there. Even
absolutely.
Within the framework of the church. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there's and just so everybody understands too, when we talk about Israel, there's two things to consider. There's the people, right? The remnant, those that are loyal to God, and then there's the nation. Which came back to, in our context, 1948.
77 years ago.
So, when we talk about those things, Dave, when you're out and you're talking to people and you're dealing kind of with this, and there's a lot of antis, by the way. We talk about anti-Semitism, but there's a lot of antis, right? There's also, anti-Christian, and there's anti-Muslim people, and there's anti-this, and there's somebody's always angry about something somewhere, because it's like our culture. If it's not angry, it's not happy, which I don't understand that. But do you notice a difference between people? Do people try and delineate between the difference between the people and the nation, like national action versus the people themselves? Do you notice any of that in those conversations, or is it just kind of negative across the board? What have you discovered in your travels and your conversations?
Generally, Israel is just seen as a whole,
right, as one unit.
But there are those people who say, "Listen, I'm for the Jewish people, but I'm against the Israeli government or the IDF," or they'll delineate out a few things.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And it's really hard to when people are getting like that, it's really hard to go, well, then how do you support the people if the people are actually part of the IDF, and how do you support the people if they're actually part of that government? Like, how do you process that, and how do you encourage people to say, hey, when we talk about biblical blessing, we talk about God said, look, I will bless those who bless you, I'll curse those who curse you, right? And we look at the promise to Abram in Genesis chapter 12. Of course, for those of you who aren't familiar, Abram becomes Abraham as the God breathes life into him, and so how do you process that with people when they're struggling with that? Is there something that you have learned through your conversations to help people with that?
Yeah, it's a very dicey piece these days, because especially younger generations are struggling with this war issue, and the innocent Palestinians, and the various loss of lives, all the collateral damage, those kind of things. So they'll say things like, I don't want to be judgmental against the Jewish people, but, they're unleashing hell on, Gaza and blah, blah, blah. So I try to take the time to really not only listen to them, but help them understand, look, Israel doesn't have to be a political issue. It's more of a biblical issue.
Right. Yeah.
And help them to understand why we should see the importance from God's heart regarding Israel, because Israel is no different than it was in the Bible. Part of the reason the book is as thick as it is because God put in all of the ugly side of Israel. Every time they're serving the Lord, the next page they're
Right.
distant.
Right.
So listen, it's welcome to life. And so modern Israel is nothing more than biblical Israel, and it's history. But God has been faithful through all of that because of the promise and covenant He made.
Yeah, God made the promise.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I tell people, listen, it's 100% okay to be critical of Israel. I mean, we're critical of our own government.
Sure.
Well, yeah, currently there's
Right?
a lot of conversation about it.
Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with being critical of Israel. It's government and it's military. But when God made the promise to Abraham, He drew a line. And He said, I'm going to bless those who bless you, and then I'm going to curse those who curse you. So how do you know when you cross the line? Because I think God pays very close attention to that. I think He means to this very day, the promise He made to Abraham is still in place as though it were the day He spoke it. He still means that to this day. So where do we cross the line at, and how do we know that? And I think there's two simple ways. One is when our criticism becomes anti-Semitic, when it's driven by hatred, or the true rendering, I'll curse those who curse you, those who treat you as though you are nothing or belittling.
Right.
And so that's when we cross the line.
Right.
The second thing is when we hold Israel to a double standard. So we hold it higher than we do any other nation, and we have unrealistic expectations. We expect them to be, 100% walking with God and the shining light on the hill. And
You have
those
been to
kinds of
Israel
things.
and met the people. When you're there, you realize that there's a lot of secularism.
Yeah,
in
the vast
Israel.
majority of
Yeah.
Jews by far are secular. God is
Yeah.
at work, and there's more and more people who are becoming active in their observance. But by and large, the majority of Jews are secular. But once again, I'll stop people who are wrapped pretty tight over all of the innocent lives that have been killed, and I say, well, listen, I haven't heard you mention one word about what's going on with the Ukrainian people or the Russian people. Do you feel keenly about that? Because you seem like you're holding Israel to a higher standard than you are the other nations of the world.
Well, I think part of that, too, is the way that we receive in our culture. I'll put it like this. In our culture, it's the way we receive information.
Exactly.
And so part of that is we receive information the way that, well, it's
From Fox
designed
News.
to be received. And that's problematic.
Yeah.
Because I think when we do that and we kind of blindly listen instead of open up our Bibles and read
Yeah.
and understand what God has said.
Yeah.
I think what happens here, and I love what you're saying too, because I think one of the things is justice. Like when we talk about criticism, it's okay to say, hey, maybe that right there may not have been just or right, and even God would be displeased with that. And by the way, is God displeased with injustice? Absolutely.
Sure.
Well, all the way around. But there's injustice on both sides. So let's take away from Israel for a second. Let's go to Russia and Ukraine as an example.
Yeah.
Is there injustice on both sides? Absolutely. Is there money that's being used inappropriately? Yes. Is there political things that are going on behind the scenes that are unjust, that are power hungry? And you cannot love God and mammon. And you have people that are in love with money, resources, power, which is not what they're supposed to be in love with. They're supposed to be in love with God. And so you have injustice in that area. But at the same time, cartels are killing people on the streets. I think that's unjust. And right now you have people that are like, oh, no, we shouldn't judge them. It's not right to arrest or do, things against people who are doing injustice. And so it's like the whole world, as we've seen, is flipping upside down inappropriately. And we're having one of many conversations when it comes to anti-Semitism that creeps into the church. There's all kinds of mistakes that are being made when it comes to God's character and requirements for us as well, his human representatives here in his kingdom. And so I find it very fascinating that, and I appreciate what you're saying, because it's like we're hyper-focused on this issue. And I think part of that is our news cycle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
it never shuts up.
Well, this is what keeps a lot of pastors from talking about Israel, because it's too hot of a topic politically, and it will split my church and whatever they want to say. But the reality is that Israel always has been and always will be a lightning rod, and it will be one of those things that you have to choose what you want to do based on the Bible. And so I encourage those pastors to look. Why don't you make Israel a biblical focus?
Yeah, teach through the Old Testament.
Exactly.
Yeah, make sure you're doing that. I appreciate Zechariah 12:2, right, where God says, "Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all people round about, and they shall be in the siege both against Judah and against Jerusalem." Of course, we also know that it's context historically, but the reality is nobody knows what to do with Israel.
Yeah.
And so Israel is still this problem in our world that we can't seem to unsee, and it's that focus. Like, why are we so against Israel? Well, let's turn that around. Why are so many people against Christianity?
Mm-hmm. And who's complaining about the Christians getting their heads chopped off in Nigeria, right? Not many people.
Right.
No. And so this idea of like the persecution of Jewish people. Well, we're not that far removed. I mean, so the persecution of Christians and this anti-Christian rhetoric. Oh, you can't. Well, we can do everything, but we can't pray in schools, or we can't do this thing, or we can't. It's this really strange thing where people just want to eliminate God from their world, and this godlessness that they desire. What scares me about that is where Revelation says, where they won't repent. No matter how much judgment God pours out, they won't repent. They would rather have the rocks of the hills fall on them than turn and repent of their wickedness and their wicked ways. And so I find that really interesting. When you guys go, you take people to Poland, and when you guys go, do you find that, are you taking people, pastors that have not traveled to Israel before, that have traveled to Israel before, and why is Poland part of that?
Good question.
Because I think that's really important for people to know.
Yeah, we take pastors who've not been on a Kufi trip, because it's unlike any other Israel trip. Because Kufi gets you into these places and opportunities that I've taken many people across the years to Israel on Israel trips. I can't ever get them into these places like what Kufi can, because Kufi has a relationship with the leadership of Israel that gives them permission to get in all these places.
It's like going with Chuck Missler back in the day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, the reality is that they used to take the pastors to Israel and realize that because of the history of the Jews and going to visit Yad Vashem, the Holocaust memorial there, they realized that maybe it would be more meaningful if we could start with the history of what created the Holocaust. And so they decided to add Poland. So you fly into Warsaw and you visit one of the smaller concentration camps. And by the way, I'm sure Dave feels the same way. You don't need much of imagination when you go to visit these, because it's right in front of you. But Mondamek was one of those that it was a smaller one, only 80-some thousand Jews killed there.
I think about that statement. Yeah. Only 80,000.
Yeah.
Right.
That's Idaho Falls plus.
Yeah, it's Idaho Falls and half of Ammon.
Only 80,000 people at Mondamek.
One of the smaller ones. Then we work our way from Warsaw which, by the way, Poland is absolutely gorgeous.
Yes, sir.
It's amazing. We drive and make our way to Krakow, where we visit Auschwitz and Birkenau, and those are larger and probably higher profile, but the same thing's going on at all of these, and that is putting to death the Jews. And so the hope is that you can educate these pastors. Kufai's interest is one purpose and one purpose only. Take the truth back to your congregation and tell them the truth. Kufai could really care less about whether or not you raise up a group of people and go back. If you do that, fantastic. But we want you to see the truth. We want you to hear the truth. We want you to experience the truth. We want you to have a chance to talk to anybody and everybody in Israel, and then take this home. And this is an interesting question that you can ask people who are struggling with Israel. Have you ever been there? Because the moment you ask that and they say no, you realize that they haven't experienced what you've experienced. They haven't seen what you've seen. And for most people, Israel is nothing but a place mentioned in the Bible, and it's Old Testament in its existence, and they don't count modern Israel as biblical Israel. They don't see it as the prophetic fulfillment of what God promised.
Right. Yeah.
So, you deal with the whole full spectrum of people, and you have to just, I guess, be well-versed enough to be able to engage them in conversation. But, one of the pieces about this, the prophets help us here. God told Israel, I'm going to scatter you to the four corners of the earth, which he's done. And once he fulfilled his word that he was going to bring Israel back into existence, and he does that, and Isaiah says, can a nation be born in a day? Before she goes into labor, here's the baby. And so Israel is birthed instantaneously, and God has promised that I am going to gather you back into the land that I have given you. I will not forget a one of you. I'm going to get you back into the land, and that's step one, and that's what he's doing right now. He's bringing the people back. Yeah. Step two is, I will take your heart of stone and replace it with a heart of flesh. That's phase two.
Yeah.
And so that's not happened yet, but it's in the process. And God is fulfilling his word. We're living in Bible times.
Yeah.
And we're watching this unfold right in front of our face. And so as we help people to understand, and I deal with the Christians all the time who wonder, well, how come these Jews aren't living, the Bible, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, listen,
well, you just ask the same thing about Christians.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just beside the point. But yeah,
God's getting the people back in the land just like he promised. He's doing that, and he is at work, and you don't have to worry. He's not going to be late.
No. He's not going to be late. When you're talking about those things, couple things. First of all, for the listener and the Bible student, Deuteronomy chapter 30, verses 3 through 5. And of course, if you love trippy theology, I love Ezekiel. But Ezekiel 37, 21, 22 deal with that. Isaiah 11 through 12, Jeremiah 31, 8 through 8. So Amos, chapter 9, verses 14 through 15. You'd have to realize that when we're talking about the prophets speaking into this, starting with Moses, and then the others saying, look, this is going to happen, that they would be gathered together after a dispersion. After, obviously, we know what happened with Nebuchadnezzar and the Assyrians, and the nation falling apart, being scattered, and then being brought back. Everybody has to understand that happened 2 generations ago. It happened in 1948. So that's. And so they are back in the land, and it's been a battle since they've been back in the land. And it's not, and of course, what put them back into the land, what was the catalyst for that? Part of the catalyst for that was the Holocaust that did happen, Right, absolutely. And so, but yeah, there's a lot to talk about here. Listen, if you have a comment or question, we'd love to hear it. Pastors Live at therev.fm, Pastors Live at therev.fm. We're out of time for today, but we will talk to you again tomorrow. We didn't get to our Bible readings today, but we had a lot of good Bible talking today, so it was good. Hey, so we'll talk to you again tomorrow. God bless you.
You've been listening to Pastors Live, a Rev FM production podcast. Join us again for more Bible talk, laughter, and unexpected tangents. Questions or feedback? Pastors Live at therev.fm. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a review.